Otherwise we'd be relying on that guy over there that we can't see. Hi.
Yeah. So we had the idea of traveling and meeting special people here, people that are game changers, people that are pioneers, people that have a vision for the future. It became very obvious to us, at least the last 3 years, that there wasn't such a perfect world to live in. I mean, we kind of imagined something different, right? So then some of us said, okay, we need to just take responsibility and do something. So we are the creators of the world that we live in, so let's just get together and do something. So that was the idea, to meet pioneers, game changers, because they have seeds for tomorrow. We don't want to call them seeds for the future, because the future never arrives, right? But tomorrow does. And so we are here now with Angie. Angie, and
hello, thank you for asking me.
Yeah. So maybe you can just briefly introduce yourself, so our audience has an idea of who are you, or what have you been doing, and then we can have 3 parts, right? Then what happened the last few years, what have you been engaged in, and then the 3rd part would be the next steps. What do you see, or what would you give as ideas to the people? What can be done? What are the next steps?
Whoa. It's a big question to answer.
Okay, well,
but I'll break it down as well as I can. So my name's Angie. I live in Tauranga in New Zealand, and I've been on this journey in the last 3 years, the same as yourselves, knowing that something isn't quite right, but what is really going on. And I guess with the entire world lockdown situation back in those few years ago, I kind of woke up to things looking very strange and not gelling and not working well. And a lot of people around me in the community here in Tauranga were freaking out, were getting a little bit worried. We all believed at the beginning things were as they were claiming things to be. So we were a bit worried about us getting all wiped out with some disease. As we're the catalyst it was the catalyst of change, and it was the gift.
Yeah.
And why is it the gift? Because here we are today, fully awake of, there's a train going past. Did I tell you that we live by the train track? And at some point in time, you might hear an aircraft go over the house. We live under a flight path. And we also live close to a motorway. So just saying, we're live.
To the ocean, right?
Yeah, we're close to the ocean, so we've got it all happening here where I live. So just be aware of that. So there were a lot of people standing up in New Zealand, starting to find each other, find other law of attraction, find each other who were also feeling things weren't right, and start to stand up and wanting to protest and complain and have a voice. It was really important that we had our freedoms protected, because we started realizing very short period of time that our freedom was getting curtailed, and it was really crazy and nothing was making sense. So we were in a bit of a tumultuous time. Everything was up in the air all over the place. It was very confusing. A lot of people were following orders everywhere that didn't make sense either. And then the big divisions started developing amongst our families and close friends and work colleagues. So we started seeing the trends that were being televised on social media and main media about all the lockdowns around in the European countries, and England and Italy and all these city places that used to be abuzz with people were isolated. And we were looking at, are we seeing this? And couldn't believe it. And we knew at some point in time it was going to come towards our way, because there seemed to be some systematic plan. It just seemed so systematic and so methodical and so strange, even more so, that you started realizing, man, this is a really small world we're in. And even smaller with the design of the internet and social media. We're all connected and we could all pass on information, and that was freely given and received at that time, because we didn't have such censorship going on back then, so we could really bust out. So I was involved in a lot of groups in the community, and someone had approached me and said, would I like to start a group? We've got 30 or 40 people, that are really needing support in a real way, and are up against not wanting to follow this narrative that was being pushed. And this is back in, it was 2020, 2021. We started to really come out of the mist. At the beginning of everything, everyone was complying, and then after a while it didn't look right. And so we started some meetings in my house, and then the next week it doubled, and the next week it doubled in numbers, so we all better go find a hall.
Wow.
So yeah, it was pretty... And all these people started congregating and we found our tribes, new tribes were forming, and with our own narratives. So at that time, when I look back, our groups that formed, discussing the panic, I guess, and the tyranny that was going on out there, we seemed quite isolated from the general public. There was a lot of isolationist sort of feeling about that, because a lot of my family and work colleagues and friends and what have you all thought we were crazy.
Oh, okay. So there was
still that. Yeah. There was two polarities. There was a polarity of things going on. So we seemed like we were crazy, and then everyone will know these stories now. So we ended up collecting really big numbers of people, protesting, signs went out. And it's the same thing overseas. You see, the patterns were the same. It was just different locations, different cultures, but the same story. So everyone was in this fight or flight feeling. So I found out, with me standing up and running groups, that I actually had quite a natural ability to lead people in a nice way, and not like a Jawohl way, but in like a nice, we're all in this together. And I felt like I had a way where I could help people feel courageous. I had a way that helped people feel more stable, that we'd found each other, and to keep it really lovely and good intentions, and finding good ways through things and finding solutions. So when we got to the point, I said, I think we've had enough of fighting and we've had enough of protesting. It might be a really good idea if we start looking into the future, and let's plan and create how we want it. And I told everybody in the groups, and I started going to parks, because there was a lot of things you weren't allowed more than 10 people in a room. Well, we were busting out 100 and something people in a hall, and there were 200 people in a park, and I didn't follow those rules, which was a good thing, because everyone else also didn't follow those rules, and we all didn't follow those rules together, we became more courageous, and we came up with great ideas, and we could vent, and we could cry on each other's shoulders and bolster up the sides.
Yeah, and you were in nature, right?
And we were in nature. A lot of the time we were in parks, and a lot of people would turn up, would have microphones. We started to get quite savvy at being the roving reporters and the roving media of the alternatives. And so I started advocating to everyone that everyone's most powerful tool was their imagination. And everyone's looking at me strangely and blankly. What is this woman talking about?
Yeah.
I said, have a dream big of where you want to see your life. Don't worry about what's going on now. Let's not worry about going out with all our protest signs, because it's just a really negative loop cycle.
Yeah.
And it's getting us nowhere but a tight circle. So if we can imagine how we want it, let's dream. What's the most important thing we need to worry about? What's the most important thing we need to be thinking about? And everyone's looking at me, and we came to the conclusion it was our food source. We need to grow our own gardens. What's happened to us becoming independent? What happened to us learning all these wonderful things we've learned from our parents and grandparents growing up, where everything was easy? Preserving fruit, baking, cooking, storing things, vegetable gardens, sharing, and chatting with each other in the street. Who do we know in our street? So we started going along the lines of dreaming, and then we started promoting the idea of starting projects in your home. What have you got in your home? Do you need a water tank? What if it doesn't rain? What if the services get cut off? What are we going to do? And who knows about gardening? Who loves gardening? A lot of people put their hands up. We had a lot of people in the group that did love gardening, and they knew about gardening, and it was pretty much a lost art form with a lot of the older people in our community. They knew heaps, and they were really excited they could teach. So we started forming groups of the most important things we needed, and besides the gardens and protecting our food sources, also our health. So we started to mistrust in the way the hospitals were operating, and the medical staff in the other side was just sounding really crazy. So that was another important thing that dovetailed in with our food, nutrition, looking after our health, and alternatives for our medicines. And then we found out there was many practitioners and therapists in our group that just couldn't wait to do that and present their products and their services. And so we started doing these wellness talks for about over a year, every Friday evening. Lots of people will come to listen to the wellness and the health practitioners talking about their programs and their therapies and their products. And so everything started to grow. And then at the time when all the markets were being under great restrictions for selling their products to the public, we created, through our groups, a freedom market out in the country, under the big oak trees. And then we also started privately run gardens. Now, when I say community gardens, they were big gardens, rows deep, rows long. And we had the beautiful generosity of our private members in our groups. They had big tracts of land. We had a lot of people that are in rural properties and farms and hill properties, and have orchards or plenty of land to plant gardens. And so we're so grateful that we could go on to these private gardens. One was a fruit tree, sort of like forest food, nuts and fruit trees. The other one was all vegetables, staple diet vegetables. We got very specific. We didn't want to go too exotic. Just to things that everybody would like to trade in.
Yeah.
And the other garden was under tunnel houses in Te Puke. So one was up in Whakamarama, which is north from here, of Tauranga, in the Tauranga area, but probably about 20 minutes, 30 minutes up our highway. And the other direction down south was Te Puke, were some tunnel house gardens, so they could grow all year round. And they had, we ended up getting managers and volunteering to step in and take over the role of running the gardens and taking on volunteer gardeners. And it just took off. And then the freedom garden markets also had were represented by our market garden produce and other miscellaneous items that would come in.
Was it then that the volunteers learned about gardening?
Yes, a lot of them.
Yeah, so it was not just the gardeners doing it, but also people could learn about it.
People came in and wanted to be part of it. Everyone just seemed to want to be part of the movement because they felt, I think the general consensus of it all was people felt they wanted to be productive and they wanted to help get their freedom back. They really felt a deep desire to participate in any way they could. If it was holding a sign on the street, going to help in the garden, buying things from the freedom market to keep the stall holders going. And the markets were really next level quality markets, all general kind of items and goods, as well as produce and food carts. And I've got to say, at that time we were running those freedom gardens, all these restrictions were full on. And everyone just escaped from where they were and came up to the hills of the market garden on every Saturday morning. It was every second Saturday morning. And the sun would be out, we'd be under the oak trees, the birds would be out, and we were on a Bible college, privately owned land, and they gave us permission to run our markets there. And they weren't sure what we were all about with our religious or spiritual background, so we couldn't have things like crystals or tarot cards there. So we just respected that and thought each to their own. We were just grateful that they let us on there, and then they thought, wow, all these market people coming onto our land are really lovely energies, and it was like heaven on earth. You ask anyone that went to the markets those days back then when all these restrictions were on, they all said this is just very heaven sent feeling, joyful. And so we just gathered our numbers strength by strength because we're doing so many good things with each other in our community and supporting each other. So the market gardens or the community gardens, when we set them off, a lot of people were bringing their own seeds and seedlings to plant and had an idea how they wanted to work their garden beds, and it became really a nice camaraderie of a social event. We'd turn up and get to catch up on the latest news and we become all really close friends, these new formings of tribes. And then I started promoting that we don't have strict schedules at the garden. We had guidelines from the owners of the property where you could or couldn't go on their property, what times they would like you on the property. So we made sure we totally respected the rules and access. If they didn't want lots of people coming in and didn't want to know where their gardens were, we kept that private. And then we just had our selected members that knew how to get in and out, and we all really honoured the rules because we were so grateful that we could go there. And they loved that we were doing that and were part of using their property. So it all started to then develop into saving seeds. Then we ended up having someone from our garden group who was very well versed in planning, and would start doing workshops. So people would go, a lot of people would come to the workshops of how to plan and plant a summer garden for summer, and then how to plan for winter gardening. And then we had someone in our group who unfortunately recently passed away. She was doing the edible wild weeds, how to identify. Then we started learning about that. We're also, I think, we're almost fully qualified medical doctors as well with what we've learnt from everything else around all that as well. I think I know more, just as much as the doctors know now from what's going on social media. You downloads of videos of how to do things and self-help and becoming self-sufficient. So part of our garden initiatives, projects, came have you got a water tank on your property? Can you water your own gardens? Composting. We had one of our the owners of the property, he ran his own composting business. So he would track the beds and put the compost in for us. It was just beautiful synergy.
Yeah, like all the different skills were
all the different skill sets came in,
Right.
and it didn't matter if you didn't know much, just get involved. And so then we started going more down that track. People would get walkie-talkies and start doing walkie-talkie training. So you can imagine it started to become, if we were completely autonomous and independent in our communities, how does that look? How do we get around? So we looked at things like horses and carts, go on a bicycle for an alternative if something happened. If the worst case scenario happened, we'd talk about it. What would we do? Where would we go? And then we had safe houses and places we could go to. We created so many different groups based on all the areas in our life that we needed to really start tuning into.
Yeah, and you mentioned health earlier.
Oh, health and wellness was big.
Did you have like herbs in the garden?
Yes, definitely. And we were planting things like anything that was going to help with medicinal, home remedies, a lot of that, and a lot of information and books that we had in the different sheds in the gardens of how to recognise what weeds that you might want to keep, or what you can make out of what's in the garden, a little bit like that. We'd swap recipes with each other. It was always a lot of fun. And then I noticed over time, when everything kind of went back to normal, when all these restrictions dropped, a lot of people went back to their old ways.
Or tried to, at least.
Or tried to, and they'd go back to the restaurants and cafes where we weren't welcome once, and then everyone would go back to the supermarkets or go back in some way that seems like a negative, because it kind of almost reversed everything. The freedom market started to dwindle off. Not many people were coming to that anymore. They had a lot more alternatives. The good thing was that a lot of people were now planting and enjoying their own gardens.
So they kept doing that.
And so what we've got now in Tauranga to this day is an abundance of organic produce from our gardens. We were all sharing them and swapping them around, like you've just got an overload of zucchinis right now, an overload of tomatoes right now. But it's a good problem.
Yeah.
We went into a potato seed planting drive at one stage where I would put a message out. So I've got my own Telegram page. We're going to message out, we need everyone who's got gardens or got some land, we need you to plant potato seeds, because we need to protect our seeds. So we went into thinking and adhering to this whole idea of what does it entail to run a garden successfully. We don't want to keep buying seeds. We need to save them, replant them, and how does that happen? How does it work? And so there's a number of places in Tauranga that do have seed banks, which is quite common. And then I also noticed around the areas little stalls are set up in the community that you can just leave things to take. The communities can leave and take things, what produce they've got or goods or products they've got that go into a little community stall on the side of the roads, or usually at community halls. There's stalls there. So there are all these really cool things, which is nothing new. I think it's just regenerating how we used to all be once as a community.
But it was like sprouting activities all over. People were starting to get creative.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So a lot of people, when they were mandated out of their jobs, and with their whole lockdown, it was a gift, because a lot of people started realising, man, the lockdown on one way was a nefarious agenda, but on the other side, it was beautiful for community, because everybody I know have loved that first major lockdown, because we felt safe, we still got money, and we could go to the supermarket and buy food, even though there was a great pandemic out there, which never made sense to me. But the good side of that was that we really connected and engaged on a soul level and a heartfelt level with our families and our children, that we're all too busy working and stressed out trying to pay a mortgage, which is another story I won't go into. But we found joy. Mm-hmm. And everywhere we went in the so-called lockdown, everybody was out on the street having a great social time with each other, trying to be 2 meters apart. Of course, that never really happened, did it? To be honest, or even in the supermarket, to be honest. So when you're really busy buying food in a supermarket, you forget that you're 2 meters away from someone. So yeah, funny days.
Yeah.
And that feeling, that connection with that feeling, changed, I think, a lot of people's pattern. They didn't want to, and then they could work from home, and then all of a sudden there was these creative, inventive ways to work now, to earn money in a different way. And there was a lot of people in our wellness groups, a lot of them were caregivers. So I would start coaching them in our groups about alternative ways of working. So they'd lost their jobs, but all their patients or clients would follow them because they loved them.
Yeah.
It wasn't the organisation, it was the people.
The personal connection.
The people.
Yeah.
That heartfelt connection, and a lot of the patients and their parents, or the ones that were being cared for, had a really deep, loving, caring relationship with the therapist or their practitioner. And they're real, and I just saw so much heartbreak, or people having to lose and their jobs are in for a long time, they lost their workmates. And so all these projects we started initiating in our groups help people get through their grief and put the energy into some practical, forward-thinking solutions. So I kept saying to people, don't wait to see anything to believe it, because that ain't going to come. Mm-hmm. You need to get on with it, create what you want, and live it, and you'll become it.
Yeah,
that's two very different sides of the coin here.
Yeah, that's what you mean with imagination.
With imagination, you
imagine it.
Fall in love with your future picture, or how you see your house with your family, how you see yourself living. You don't have to do your 9-to-5 job anymore. How does it look if you dropped out of that? Even we got really to the dire end of a proposal that if, imagine you lost everything. There was a big earthquake, a tsunami, or something happening, and you lost everything despite how much you were prepared and had everything. Could you start again? Would you die from that? And I'd suggest people would look and wouldn't quite work out, where is she coming from? But it made people think. Mm-hmm. So I was like a gardener with people. I planted seeds for that to germinate, and then later on it will spark something that they'll remember. Go, oh yeah, I hadn't thought of it like that.
Yeah.
Because I'll come out of something quite left field. So I'd suggest that if that happened, you would probably most typically go out eventually, after a few days of being afraid of what's going on, you'd probably most typically go out on the road or down the lane and see what's going on, who can you speak to. Oh, there's that old guy down the road I haven't seen for 30 years. I don't even know who he is. A distant neighbour down there, and all of a sudden you're going to have a conversation.
Yeah, so fear was a big thing.
Fear, and it was so
you
cut
pointed
off.
that out, right?
Yeah, the fear. Yeah. So the whole journey of going through this, again, everything's a gift. You've got to keep looking at adversity. It's a gift in a lot of ways, but you just got to be aware of what that gift is. So you realise then, if you look at yourself 2 or 3 years ago, you're a stranger. You were fearful, you were probably gullible, you were unsure, you didn't have the skills that you thought you had, but you didn't know until you're pushed down a path that you find out what you're made of. And then you realise that you do have gifts when you try something. And then you realise down the road, as you're going off to explore and finding people to talk to or finding another way, that you're all of a sudden becoming quite brave.
Yeah.
And then there's this courageous element that comes in. You can't lose once you're not fearful anymore. All of a sudden you're brave.
Yeah, like
and then that bravery increases.
Yeah. That's great. And it's contagious, right?
It's contagious, so people think...
That's the good thing about it. Yeah.
Someone will always follow you if you look like you know where you're going. You might not, but look confident, and then you'll become confident.
Right.
I mean, there was a time I had to go travel overseas when I didn't want to, and I was freaking out, and then I had to correct myself in my head, going, you are telling people to be brave and get out and do things, don't be afraid of things. So I had to walk my talk. I had to go on a plane and go to Central America by myself in a time that felt very safe to travel, and I just had a little word with the universe upstairs and said, okay, this is how it's going to run, and I imagined how I thought it would go. There's very strong, powerful thinking, and you know what? Everything turned out the way I asked it.
Wonderful.
So it does
it does work. Yeah.
It does work.
Yeah.
You come back going, wow, that was a trip. That was great. So everything cup half full, to be honest, and there's a remedy for everything.
Yeah.
So what's happening in our gardens now? A lot of people dropped out of our gardens. We just got a core few of what do you call the diehards, the ones that stick. So what we've got, the same pattern running for all time is the few running the many, and that's the seem to be. And I've surrendered to that. I used to go, oh, why does everybody drop out of everything? I'm pretty sure that's a worldwide thing.
Yeah.
No matter what projects you run,
yeah.
you got your people that stick.
Right.
You got your people that come in and go out and come in and disappear, and then you got the people that are in it for 2 weeks and you never see them again. And you know what? I just surrendered to that. I go, okay, that's your solo journey. I'm doing this right now, and then until you're not doing it.
Yeah, everybody has their own journey.
They have their own journeys, and I have to respect that.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of fallout in our gardens and groups. Groups have been infiltrated, sabotaged. A lot of people with different opinions.
Just the whole spectrum, right?
Yeah, there's just a whole spectrum of different spectrums. There's different spectrums of awakenedness, and acknowledging that that's okay too. So the more I felt I surrendered to all these things, the more my life opened up and the more gifts that came in. Yeah, and there's endless possibilities of solutions. Is all I see.
And you need to walk your own path.
I need to walk my own path.
Right. And continue and not look back or be sad about, people not following or...
No, I just, at first, and this is dropping the old ways. We cannot move into the new ways of being with lush, abundant gardens and there's no lack. I would not listen to anybody that ever said to me, well, we're going to run out of potatoes. Oh my goodness, there's going to be a crisis with the food. Look, they're burning all the food over there on this film somewhere in Colombia or something. I go, typically my answer would be, okay. I didn't really believe it. I can see the film, but then I always sense there's a nefarious reason behind that film, and I don't want to create what I'm seeing. We are all powerful creators, and it starts here. It's all mental. And if that's where it starts, that's where it ends, and it's got to stay there. Don't compromise your mind for anybody else's business. It's just not worth it. You've got to stay on your path.
Yeah.
People will come, and that's something else. Just don't worry about it. Start something. People will come, and it'll either become something or it will not.
Yeah.
And just accept that's it.
Angie, you're saying that just by watching a video that might be fake.
Yeah, fake videos. You can sense it.
Yeah. Right, you co-created.
Yeah, I go over, so people will, I'll give you a little example
That's an important point. Yeah.
People were freaking out about 5G and frequencies. And I go, mind over matter. This is my mind goes over that matter. And I neutralize it with my mind. And it's a very powerful form of thinking.
Yes, it is.
And I just neutralize that. Everywhere I go, I see big towers going up in lush forests on the top of beautiful hills and mountains. There's a great big honking tower up there. And I go, neutralise that and be gone. And that's how it is. So people will say to me, well, don't you have... I say, I'm in the middle of the city. I've had someone come in and check the electronic frequencies, the EMFs here, and he's a freaked out kind of guy. He's got all the machines, he comes in with all the gadgets, and he wanted to come and test the house. It tested my body, and he just couldn't believe it. He says to me, gee, it's really low in here. I said, well, look, there's towers around, I'm sure. He goes, well, probably not where you are. There doesn't look like there's much around. I said, well, it's just low frequencies, and your body's got almost nothing going there. And he thought it was really strange. And I thought, well, I don't know if it's my belief system or my guardian rocks I use. If I believed, which I have guardian rocks I did take from Eco Farm, put them around the house, and I believed, they absorbed the frequencies of anything negative or nefarious, and it seems to work.
Yeah.
So
and I mean, how great that you had that guy come in and he actually proved it to you. Yeah. So you know it's not just an illusion, you know, but this guy with all the...
and that was good. I thought, oh my goodness, that's really fantastic.
Yeah, right.
That made me feel good.
Yeah,
it kind of gives you a confirmation that I'm onto something.
Yeah.
So,
so that's wonderful. Yeah.
So
that's a good point about like you surrendering now towards so we don't put expectations in front of us, compare reality with it, and then be disappointed. What kind of strange game is that, right? That we are doing to ourselves.
I know.
So you just with the surrender, you just remove the expectations and you look at what is and what kind of impulse you are getting for your next step. Is that...
Yeah, it allows, when I stay in neutral and surrender, I allow myself to stay in a more neutral position, try not to get caught up in my emotions. What I find is my head stays clear and I can make really good decisions when I'm not fuzzy with someone else's problems or emotions and stuff. And I also, I might say this for a lot of people, why do we need to feel we need to help people?
Yeah, why?
And I was doing a lot of it. I compromised myself for 2 years straight. I was running so many things and getting groups and networking. I'm not saying I did it all, but I was pretty much an instigator of a lot of things that then took off. And then the groups were split out and there'll be new leaders forming and all new groups. And I felt great because people were taking their lead and they were going with it and they were reforming from a core main group. Everything just went like this, spread into different areas. And I thought, oh, thank you, because I don't want to be anyone's guru. I don't want to really be anyone's leader. I was just there helping people to remember that they are powerful and they can lead and they can do something as well. Go do it.
Yeah.
You know? And I'd say to the parents who were freaking out and they had kids going through school and everything else, I'd try and get them to remember that they're leading their children, they're inspiring their children. How do you want your children to follow you? Please be brave. Step up and step out and stand up for them.
Yeah.
Show them how to do something. Start a project in the house that's of value, that's productive, that's going to be helpful for your family. And that gives the kids and you something to really get excited about. And you know, people came back to me. They'd be freaking out. What's going on out there? Well, oh my God, that's so last year. I thought we're going to go back to starting projects again. I go start a project, lady. Oh, what should I do? I said, what do you need? What do you need in your house? Do you have a water tank? No. I've been thinking about that for a long time. I says, go and start a project. Start a water tank. 2 weeks later, she came back. Oh my God, I feel so great. I did the water tank. I'm thinking I'm going to do this now. It's all you need is one step.
Yeah.
And that's what was happening everywhere.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, what do you see for the future? I mean, maybe for tomorrow, not the future. What are next steps? You know, people all choose their own path. You know, some go back to normal if that's even possible.
I just go back to, so a lot of what was happening got crazy busy. Everything was full on to the point where I never had a rest. And then I had something come inside my mind that just says, stop what you're doing and step back and be quiet. I went, what? Stop? Just stop.
Yeah.
I went, okay. So I stepped away and, you know, I had to observe. So it was put into a space of time where I needed to observe and be the watcher and watch what was going on. It's like rest and feel what's your body telling you now, where you're at, because we've gone through a lot of stuff. You now need to just stop and take it all in and allow it to percolate or allow it to to take a life of its own and give it space so people can find their way in their own time. It's not my time, it's not your time, it's not their time, it's just everyone's own time. We're at different levels. I feel humanity's in different spectrums, on different paths, and everyone is looked after in their own journey, and we must allow that. Who does us little humans think we are, trying to control everyone, trying to control everything? And by helping, why? I think that was my biggest question when I started to feel a little bit compromised. I was getting exhausted. Why isn't anybody else stepping up? Why are people not participating anymore? It got quite frustrating, and that made me stop and step back and say, well, that's because that's everybody's solo journeys, and they must be on those, and you must allow that to happen. So I had to self-reflect on, why do I feel I want to help? Is there something I'm lacking in? Do I need to get a buzz out of that? Is it something of self-gratification coming out there? Is it an ego trip? So I need to sit back and relax and reflect upon myself, because if I could nut that out, that would probably pertain to many people around me.
Yeah, right.
Would I have to say, yeah, but why do you want to help them? Because I can see we're compromising ourselves.
Yeah.
Oh, because, but there was no, at the end of those questions, there was no good enough answer that they cannot help themselves.
Yeah.
How much of yourself will you give to help someone else? How loyal are you going to be to someone else when you'll destroy yourself in some way or shape or form, maybe?
Yeah, in the extreme.
In the extreme.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So is this like a virus, this thing about needing to help people?
Well, it's kind of like a pandemic, isn't it? A virus. That's like, a virus to me is just go home for a couple of days, rest, drink plenty of water and go watch a movie or read a book. In a couple of days you'll be fine, because that virus is a solo journey. It's probably not even contagious if you really think about it. You know?
Yeah. But it's interesting to kind of trace that back. You know, it goes back to religion, like the Christian religion. You need to help your neighbor, and you know.
It's a good thing to help each other. I honestly think we're born
to help another.
Yeah, we're born on the earth plane to help each other. But it's to learn how you do it.
Yeah.
Where you're not hurting yourself, because you help self first before you help someone else.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what good are you to help that person if you're no good?
Well, that's the thing about, like in the airplane, right? If the oxygen drops, you put the mask on yourself. First
so you can think clearly.
Yeah, and then, you know. So that's, don't sacrifice yourself for others.
So I see us going into a really beautiful, wonderful future. I really, really do. It just doesn't seem to be coming fast enough. And we can't get there in the old ways of thinking. And you can't drag the old world with us. It gets to a point where you have to surrender to the end of that. And then you've got to go into a holding pattern, like into a neutrality, so that you can see clearly what your focus could be going forward and how does that look. And you'll get a resonance with something, or someone will turn up, a book will fall out of a shelf, a van will go past with a message on it, and it's going to tell you the next step. I believe we're going into the unknown. This is the unknown lands where we're going to. We don't know exactly. We can't be all high and mighty with tuning in with the cards and with the book and with a spiritual guru. Well, they're saying this is what's going to happen, and our star sisters said that. We really? Seriously, we don't know. These are all different paradigms of realities operating in different planes of existences. We only know in the present is the future, and this entire old world machinery that we've been stuck in is keeping us in the past. We don't belong there anymore. There is nothing else going on but a loop program, round and round, and there's nothing new, and we're all really aching for that release of that magnificence and that joyfulness and that true universal love and no judgment and excitement, because we innately know we are very powerful creators, and that is all there to align like that. And once what no longer serves us goes, boom, you're into the new planes of existence. And we've already been there, we come from there already, I feel. something I saw visions of many years ago. We were going to be automated, so like artificial intelligence. I'm going to go out there now. Artificial intelligence evolving organically, organic intelligence, sentient beings in there, sentience, that connects with our emotions and our feelings and how we are naturally, listening, like our body, listening and taking instruction from us. Once we know we can control, when I say control, we can influence, we have an influence over what is going on energetically, what we don't see. Because what I've seen in my visions is we're going into a fully automated future, which is good. It's not nefarious, it's beautiful and it's joyful and it's godlike. And we're going back to the land, amongst the trees and the land, because we're being called back to the earth. We're being called back into our gardens and going back into the simple way of living. Like the hippies, like the Amish, whatever you want to call it as a label, that will all go, by the way.
Yeah.
We don't have labels. It's just a beingness. And we'll resonate with each other. Through law of attraction, we'll see each other, we'll just know. We'll already know before we're there. And they all know we're coming. And it's all waiting. And I think it's going to believe, it's there real soon. It's as long as you want to hold on to the old, that will stay like that for you. And then many maybe aren't going to make it into this new paradigm because they're not resonating. It's not their role or it's not their path this time maybe. And they'll be looked after. I don't think we need to worry about our family. We don't need to worry about our friends. It'll just be looked after in its own organic way.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
I mean, that's so exciting, inspiring.
Yeah, that's what I see.
Yeah. Wow.
So
Thank you so much.
Oh, it's all right. Sorry for rabbiting on.
No, that's perfect. I mean, it's just like, wow, yeah. So that's where we came from and where we are now, and then
where we're going.
It's a very individual way.
Very individual.
And it's an adventure.
Yep. Absolutely,
and
adventure.
We can look forward to it.
Into the unknown. So all you need to bring with you is 100% faith in what you don't know. That's faith of self. And that will get you there. And there is no fear there. Now, many people have said to me they've gone some hard journeys in the last 2 or 3 years and they are no more in fear. There is no more fear. And when you lose your fear, then your game begins. Ooh. You watch it change.
Yeah.
You've got nothing to lose, you've got everything to gain. And that's the trick right there. It's like, bring it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome. So nice meeting you too.
Yeah, nice meeting you too.
Pretty crazy ride, really.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.